Good morning and welcome to another edition of the Daily Fix. I am your usual host and presenter, Advocate Tudo Hoyane. This morning I bring you some very gruesome news. You are probably aware from media reports that there's this Judicial Conduct Tribunal which features or wherein the Judge President of the Eastern Cape Division, Judge Mbenenge, is facing charges of sexual harassment, which may, if he's found guilty, probably lead to his impeachment as a judge. Now, let us begin by saying this. Judge Selby Mbenenge is the Judge President of the Eastern Cape. He is the most senior judge in that division. And I want to underline that. He's the most senior judge in that division. Under him serve a lot of other judges. Why am I, emphasizing the fact that he's the most senior judge in the division? I'm emphasizing this because, this is not the sort of conduct we expect from a person of that stature, the judge president of a division, let alone just being a judge, the most senior judge in the division. Now, this is probably the first case of its kind in South Africa that I'm aware of, where a judge is being hauled before a judicial conduct tribunal for sexual harassment, because that is what it is. As this case unfolds, the evidence is just too graphic. It is so embarrassing. The sordid details are beginning to roll out one after the other. It would appear that this relationship was solicited, or it was undertaken by way of WhatsApp messages. WhatsApp messages were exchanged between the complainant, Mrs. Mbenenge, and the judge president, who is referred to as the respondent in the proceedings. In those WhatsApp messages, there are, explicit messages, or the content rather, is of an explicit sexual nature. You see a concerted effort over quite a period of time by the judge president to try and strike some relationship with the complainant. And we have heard from the evidence that is unfolding before the tribunal that the complainant made many efforts to try and resist him. Now, before I go any further, we must look into the power dynamics underlying these proceedings. You see, here you have a judge's clerk, somebody who's very junior in the hierarchy, lodging a complaint against the most senior person in that division, the judge president. It cannot have been easy for Mrs. Mbenenge. I can imagine the sort of pressure that she is in. And there are reports that she has faced threats to her life, such that as we speak, she is no longer in the Eastern Cape. But the power dynamics here are, obvious for all to see. Because if the evidence is anything to go by, and I'm not trying to write the obituary of the judge president of the Eastern Cape here, I'm not trying to prejudge the outcome of the tribunal. Get me right. But if the evidence is anything to go by, it would appear that the judge president was abusing his power or status as the head of that division to concertedly pursue this lady. She is referred to as Mrs. Menge or Mengo. I suppose she's a married woman. That's why there's reference to her as Mrs. This is a married woman who is being pursued in this fashion. Let me just give you a taste of what is going on here. You know, the details are sickening. And please pardon me if I get too blunt about some of these things. But that is the evidence that is unfolding before the Judicial Conduct Tribunal. There are references to penny size. Penny size, my God. You know, at one stage, the complainant was not feeling well. And the judge president is supposed to have sent her a text message to the effect that I can fix you. And what can that can only mean, you know, I can fix you sexually. It is the most disgusting thing that I've ever seen unfold in this country. It is also the allegations, you know, have tarnished this image. I saw the man sitting there, looking so dignified, white hair and all. And I said to myself, what I'm hearing here does not seem to be coming from this man. You know, he looks like a gentleman. You're a gentleman's gentleman. But apparently there's more to his looks than meets the eye, because the details are just so crucial. Now all this coming, you know, on the backdrop or in a context of a country where gender-based violence, because this is violence. This is violence. Violence need not just be physical. This is violence. This is emotional violence. Has reached epidemic levels. It is frankly disgusting to see this sort of thing. It is disgusting not only because it is so prevalent in this country, but allegedly coming from a man in that sort of position. I will be watching these proceedings very closely, because listen to that evidence. I don't see how Advocate Sikakani, with all due respect to him, is going to, you know, cross-examine around that kind of documentary proof. The electronic evidence is there. The SMS, the text messages are there. The WhatsApp messages are there. So even his defense team will have a mountain to climb on their hands. It would also appear that some of the communications by the judge president to this lady were deleted, and all that we have are responses. That is also suggestive of, you know, somebody trying to cover up his tracks. Unfortunately for Judge Mbenenge, this time, the chickens have come home to roost. She just came across a person who was never going to tolerate that. This lady was never going to tolerate that. And as all this unfolded, she gathered evidence. And the evidence that she gathered is now unfolding before the tribunal. I've just said that it will be very difficult for the defense to try and, navigate their way around this and prove that she's innocent of all these charges when the evidence is so glaring. And if the evidence again is anything to go by, she's said to be found guilty. Without preempting anything, let me repeat, it all points to his guilt. We don't know what he'll say in his defense. And he's perfectly entitled to a defense to challenge whatever allegations are being put before this tribunal at this particular point in time. But it will be a difficult journey for the judge president. And as it is, there's also public perception. The court of public opinion is quick to make judgments. Once allegations like this are made, people make their own conclusions that, oh, well, he did all this. His reputation, is in tatters now. Even before the judgment of that judicial conduct tribunal are known. His reputation to be associated, merely being associated with conduct of that nature, can be so damaging to one's reputation for somebody in such a senior position. But well, like I'm saying, that does not preempt or prejudge what the outcome will be. But I'm keeping a very close watch on this. I will follow this matter right up to the impeachment of the judge, if the judge is going to get impeached. And if Judge Mbenenge is found guilty of this kind of conduct, no effort must be spared to ensure that this kind of behavior cannot be tolerated. And that is a big if. If the allegations are found to have substance, if he's found guilty, like I'm saying, I'm not prejudging anything, but the evidence tells me something else. Having said that, let me thank you again for watching this video. Let me thank you for all the subscriptions that I'm seeing. There's been a slight delay for the delivery of the t-shirts, and we only had about 5 orders for t-shirts. We're anticipating that we'll have maybe something in the region of about 50 or so, but we only had 5. But it's not about numbers, because nobody was about to make a kill here. It is just about, publicizing the Meiwa trial cause. So those of you who have made those 5 of you have made orders, you should be getting your t-shirts in the next week. Thank you for watching. And for those who still want to contact me for the free legal advice, I want to underline this is free legal advice. You can contact me on 063 640 4329. That's a WhatsApp number. 063 640 4329. And you'll get that advice as promptly as I possibly can give it back to you. 2 to 3 days at most. So having said that, let me say thank you for watching this video and have a nice weekend.